I'm just going to play you a 2-minute clip of a montage from a speech that was given on synodality in Boston College in America. Just have a listen to this montage for a second.
Press conference to release the new document for the continental stage. And our secretariat is no longer the secretariat of the Synod of Bishops. The name has changed with the new constitution. It's not about creating an other church, but to create a different church, a new style of church. Experience at the Synod on Youth, it is to live a new Pentecost, to receive a new impetus for the mission, a new vision of the church with a greater love for and greater commitment to the church. And then they endorse synodality and they change their approach in ministry. And they say, I can just become a synodal priest, a synodal theologian, a synodal sister, a synodal catechist with this new style that is a collaborative style. So you can really see the impact of the synod even, and you can read in the document also all the difficulties. And we know, I don't think I need to spend a lot of time on the difficulties and challenges. There are many. And sometimes I feel that our role as the Secretary of the Synod and all of those who are engaged in the Synod, we are like midwife to accompany the path of a new birth of the church. Also a need to create new structure. So this new phase of the Synod implement this new vision, a new style of leadership. So a new way to exercise authority, this new vision of the church, calling also for putting relationship at the centers and developing new communicative dynamic. So it's the idea, and that's the new vision. That's the new vision. That's the new vision of synodality.
There are people that love change and there are people that hate change. I am the type of person that loves change. I thrive on change. If there's something new happening or a new project happening, I want to be on it. If there's new technology coming out, as my family and friends know, I'm all into gadgets and the latest this, the latest that. I find novelty and newness interesting. And so when I hear of something new, I want to know, well, what is it? I want to be ahead of the game. The older I get, I don't get as drawn into this. But when somebody be asking, well, we're introducing this new project or this new product, or we're doing this new systems, or we're doing this, we're looking for volunteers. Me, I love change. I love change. Other people hate change. There are people that can't get their heads around change when their whole world is changing. For me, change is normal. And that's just the way I am. And in business, people like people who like change. If you need to upskill, if you need to go on a course and do this, that's just me. So when the church came on with this new synodal process, I was interested, because you're there looking at what is happening with the Pope, what the Pope is doing since 2013. You're there wondering, have I read the Pope right? Have I understood him? Could I be missing something out in this new change thing, where we were the Catholic Church and now we're the Synodal Church? We used to have this way of doing things. Now we have the Synodal way of doing things. And I've been reading all of the videos that have been out there, listening to the videos to try and understand, well, what is the Pope doing? Where is he leading us to? But when I saw the consultation process happening in Ireland, and when I saw the document that came out of Ireland and the discussion that was happening in Rome, which was kept under confidential, imagine if they kept Vatican II confidential. How much trust would you have in the process? But anyway, they were keeping the discussions confidential in the Synod and Synodality. And then we had the final report come out. And I suppose during all of these things, the main question I was asking, or I was looking for, Will I know Christ better? Will you show me a way of knowing our Lord better? Is there a new way now of knowing our Lord better? Is there a new spirituality to know our Lord better, to have more union with him, to better serve him? What is this? Because the whole finality of the church is it leads us into the mystery of knowing Christ. I want to know Christ. And I love listening and reading about people's experience with Christ. You know, their conversion and how they came, and their prayer and their ministry, and, you know, what Christ has done in their life. I'm fascinated by that when you read the lives of saints or read what they've done. But I couldn't help thinking about this synodal process. And then when I got Father Gobi's book, it talks about a false Christ and a false church. And I suppose the question I'm really asking is us, if a false church was to come into being as prophesied, would you know it? Would you see it? Would you know it for what it is? No, you probably wouldn't, because it wouldn't happen overnight. It's not like you can come into a company and say, look, we're changing management, and we're releasing new products, and we're implementing new systems, and that type of change happens overnight. One day you do this, the next day you do that. In the church, you can't really introduce a new church overnight. And so the process is slowly drip feeded in. Let's drip feed it in. To such an extent, okay, now we have this new synodal process. This new way of being church. We have synodal priests and synodal nuns and synodal bishops and synodal theologians. Will this lead us to more union with God? Does it build on what St. Teresa of the Doctors of the Church spoke about? For example, what Teresa of Avila spoke about in the Interior Castle, or John the Cross, or St. Teresa of Lisieux. Will we love Christ more? Will we be more missionary? Will we outdo the saints of previous centuries? Be greater than Ignatius of Loyola, be greater than Francis Xavier, St. Francis of Assisi, or Maximilian Kolbe, St. Francis de Sales, St. Catherine of Siena, St. Teresa of Calcutta. Will we outdo them? Will we be greater than them? Will the church be more missionary? Will have it more zeal? Will we have greater prayer, greater depth of prayer, of spirituality? When I was reading through all of these documents and all of these synodal reports, I couldn't see Christ anywhere in these things. I can't see how am I supposed to lead somebody to know Christ more in all of this literature and consultation? Especially the Irish document. I said, hold on a second. What do people know when they're in these synodal meetings? What is the finality of the church and prayer and the sacraments? What is a priest supposed to be doing? It's amazing. 2,000 years and we're scratching our head. Do we know what a priest is supposed to be doing? Do we know how to train a priest to introduce him into the mystery of prayer and union with God? There is no other option other than union with God. And that your union with God has to happen here on earth, not when you die. Because when you're united to Christ, you can start to bear fruit that he wants. Because you'll be working in his garden. And you will tend his vine, his garden, pick his fruit, and you will bear fruit if you're united to God. And I can't help thinking, the synod, this synodal process is missing the obvious. It's missing the obvious. You know, if I was to put the agenda together for a synod on synodality in Rome, the agenda would be renewal of the Eucharist, more reverent masses. Everything in our sacred liturgy should point to Christ. The architecture, our vestments, the altar, the song, the liturgy, the language, all pointing us into that mystery. Contemplation. Or is contemplative prayer now something that we throw out? Or do we even understand it? as maybe a bullet point in the synod on contemplation. We've loads and loads of saints that have been speaking about contemplation. We've even created them doctors of the church. Why not have a day talking about contemplation, a day talking about union with God, a day talking about what baptism does to us, a day talking about how can we renew reverence for the Eucharist, this outward sign which has an inward transformative meaning for us. A day about prayer formation, a day about the role of Our Lady in how she sanctifies us. She brings us to Christ. A day about sanctifying grace. A day about re-examining, well, hold on a second, guys, let's take a step back. What is the mission of the church? It is to save souls. If it is to save souls, it means souls can be lost. The supreme law of the church is salvation of souls. If that is the supreme law of the church, salvation of souls, well, that implies by that law that souls can be lost. It's like putting a law into the Irish Constitution saying, we want to put a law to make sure that we reduce road deaths. We have a law in our Irish Constitution, and we're going to put every effort in place to make sure we reduce road deaths. Well, by putting some type of law in that, in your constitution or in your legislation, you're implying that there is a problem there that needs to be addressed. There are souls being lost to road deaths, so we put laws in place to reduce road deaths. Well, we have the supreme law of the church is road deaths, is the salvation of souls, which implies that souls can be lost. Or do we not think about, am I stupid in thinking that, when I read the gospel, that our Lord is kind of implying that you can lose your soul? Or have we lost it? Have our theology kind of moved on? Dare we hope that hell is empty? I do hope. But I don't have I can't build my faith on telling the world, well, look, you'll be fine. We hope hell is empty. Convert someday. Or am I missing something here, guys? This synodal process is creating a new church. A synodal church. A new way of being church. Listen to the slogans. And they're really flogging it. They are flogging it to, we need a synodal church, and we need this and we need that. We need women priests, we need married priests, we need new structures, new, because the old didn't work. It's not fit for purpose today. Now, and as I said, I've nothing against new spiritualities, or somebody that comes along, like every era you have a new doctor of the church, or a new, do you understand? Like St. Teresa of Avila was new in her day. St. Thomas Aquinas was new. He was looked upon as a bit, avant-garde, the strange, his writings, people didn't really know what to make. If you think back to the era, St. Teresa of Avila, they confiscated her books. St. Teresa of Lisieux, when they began her process of canonization, a nun that met her said, or that knew her in the convent says, Teresa of Avila, they want to canonize her, but I knew her. Do you get me? I've nothing against something new coming into the church. But I question, will I know Christ more with this process? Really, I ask you. Because wouldn't we build on what we have to bring us into a stronger, better way of union with God? No, Saint Ignatius Loyola, when he created the new spiritual exercises during that time, that was kind of a revolution in the church. And this is a new spirituality, a new way of spiritual exercises, which bore fruits, because St. Ignatius Loyola had union with God. He'd gone through those mansions that St. Teresa of Avila is, and so he produces something And yet the figures that are pushing this agenda onto us, you know, when we look at the Amazon Synod and the people that are invited, and the bishop that said, "I never baptized anybody," you're asking us to believe what you're pushing. You don't have union with God or any level of spiritual formation if you can come out with something saying, "Oh, I never baptized anyone." There is no credibility in a process when the people pushing it on us can't engage with us properly, especially when you're rejecting whole swathes of the church from a process. You know, just before the synodal process came out, the Pope issued Traditionis Custodes. Surely the synodal process, when we're all talking in this new way of being church, surely that would have been a place, okay, well, let's dedicate one day to talking about the old rite, the old way of being church. Let's dedicate one day in the synodal process to talk about the old way of being church. And bring in the people that follow the old way of being church into the discussion. But no, the new way of being church means excluding people we don't like to listen to. I mean, it really is. I was just thinking, gosh, we're all talking here. I know traditional Catholics can seem rigid and awkward too, and very abrupt sometimes. We should learn a bit more about our charity and stuff like that. I know it. I know, it can happen. But the more I look at the traditional movement, especially how they form their children, they deeply love the faith. They're just kind, honest people. Kind, honest Catholics. I mean, that's the Catholics that I met in Ireland. If you go to St. Pius X chapels, I often speak to people that go to SSPX, and they are just kind, honest Catholics, not radical haters and this, that, and the other. They're just kind, honest Catholics. They're kind of wondering, okay, well, yeah, we're going along this new thing, but all of this old way of being church has to some way tie in with the new way of being church. But they're not meeting together. They're kind of, well, you're going this way and we're down where we were this way. And they're not able to actually have a conversation together. But we're off in this new way of being church, this new synodal process, synodal priest, synodal this, synodal that, synodal the other. My question is the new church going to give me a new Christ? Is this new Christ any better than the old Christ I used to know? Or are we creating a false Christ and a false church? A plagiarized image of Christ. Valentin Tomberg, the Russian anthroposophist who became Catholic, very interesting character, but he talks about this. Sometimes we, in order to accommodate Christ into our lives, instead of accommodating our lives into Christ, we create a false image of Christ that we're comfortable with. It's not Christ, but it's an image of Christ we are comfortable with, because we can't be comfortable with the true Christ. And we make him to such a way that he is so remote that he doesn't disturb us. And I'm wondering, and I'm seriously asking the honest question, can somebody say, are we at risk in this synodal process of creating a false Christ for a false church? Of course, it's not going to be labelled that, but are we at risk? I want to know Christ. Show me Christ. If you're a saint or somebody and you have a way for me to know Christ, and I want to know him. And so if it's new spirituality, bring it on. I'd love to see it, but I don't see it. I don't see it. For the life of me, I can't see Christ in the synodal process. I'd love to see him, because then I could, put my whole heart and effort into that process. If I'm going to know Christ better, more, deeper, You know, I want to know him as Teresa of Avila knew him, to that level. I'm going to be audacious. And if the synodal process is going, this new synodal process, new, is the avant-garde new way of knowing Christ, I want to know. But the more I read, and I've read everything. I've read everything and every video on this synodal process. And I'm there looking, okay, how will I have union with God? How will this help me with theosis, deification? How do I link it in with the lives of the saints, with the philokalia? You can't. I can't see it. And no wonder the Coptic Church is breaking ecumenical relations with us. Because the path we're going on, even they can see it, is away from Christ. But I'd love somebody to actually sit me down and explain to me how, explain to me in simple layman's terms, how will this whole process over the last number of years in the church lead us to a greater union with God? Really, explain to me, help me see it. Because I can't see it in any of the documents. I couldn't see it in the Irish Census document. Can't see it. You know, we have Christ teachings, Christ Church. You know, we have he left shepherds to shepherd. But we've introduced a process where we've gone to the sheep and asked them. Maybe I'm missing it. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. I would love for somebody to kind of come in with some good synthesis of where I'm wrong on this. But I can't see Christ in this process. I see a counterfeit Christ. I see a copy of Christ. I see many elements of Christ. I can't see Christ. Or maybe I really like to know, because you know when you see new technology come out, it's like the iPhone come out, and some people say, oh, maybe I won't get the first version, or there was this new goggles that came out, that the Google Apple goggles, they looked nice. I wasn't going to spend money on them, but they looked fine, and you people saying, oh, I won't get the first version, I'll get the second version. You know, well, on the spiritual level, if there's, I want to know Christ. I really want to know. I want to know more about him. Really do. You know, from time to time I read an Italian mystic, Maria Valtorta, and her poem of the Man God. Now, I know it's not approved by the church. Lots of people listen to The Chosen, which is done by Protestants and Mormons. It gets promoted by Catholics. Chosen, Maria Valtorta. Okay, if we're going to look at fiction, if you could call it, I'm going to read Maria Valtorta. Now, as I said, it's the gospel revealed to her, but it's not approved by the church. So I read it as somebody would read a book on Christ, you know, meditating it. But like, I was there thinking, God, the amount of times that I would be reading it, it would really draw you into contemplation of Christ for some reason for me. I don't know why. I get enthralled in contemplation of Christ. I mean, there's one passage in there of Lazarus. She writes about the resurrection of Lazarus. You know, that moment when Christ resurrects Lazarus. I was reading Maria Valtorta's book on the resurrection of Lazarus. I swear on my life, it felt like I was in that scene. It felt like I had stepped into, stand there and look at Christ. It was surreal, very strange for me. It was like a door opened and I stepped into another world. Stepped into seeing the bandages and what was on the bandages and the door, and Christ walking in and his emotions and the people looking around and the awe and you know, him saying, Lazarus, come forth. Everything. It was just very bizarre. Whereas I look at The Chosen, I don't feel anything like that. But I read Maria Valtorta and you're drawn into some incredible contemplation. I want to know Christ more. If this synodal process will lead us to greater union with God, bring it on. Introduce it. I'd be the first to back it. I just don't see Christ in it. I'd love for somebody else to kind of pick it at it and to kind of give me a better synopsis, but I just don't see Christ in it. It's junk theology. Or maybe I just ask. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.